Welcome back to our Learn to Play series for YAFSIGA, a diceless skirmish game for 2 players brought to you by Blacksite Studio. In our last video, we had a look at how to build a roster for a warband and the basic structure of a typical game of YAFSIGA. This time, we'd like to take a closer look at how a turn works, including activating your units, combat, and battlefield traversal. If you need to skip around the video for any particular information, feel free to use the timestamps below. Without further ado, let's get started. To illustrate how a turn is broken down, we're going to jump into a battle that is already underway between 2 warbands. Player A has 3 solos and a squad: a Thane Ace, a Hearthguard solo, a Champion solo, and a squad of men-at-arms. Our second player, Player B, also has 3 solos and a squad: a Wizard solo, a Cleric solo, an Enforcer solo, and 3 marksmen. Player A and B have each flipped a card from the Chaos deck to determine initiative, with Player A winning the flip and deciding to go on the offensive as the attacker. After generating a scenario as detailed in our previous video, it's time to begin the first round. As the attacker, Player A gets to activate one of their units first. To do so, they will select a court card from their hand and play it. Player A decides to play the King of Clubs, which activates its corresponding profile's unit, their Hearthguard. By activating a unit, it may perform any 2 simple actions or 1 complex action. Since their Hearthguard is armed with a melee weapon and their enemy is so very far away, Player A will decide to have their Hearthguard perform the move action. This will allow them to advance the miniature up to its move value in inches along any horizontal surface. After they have finished their move, Player A will have their Hearthguard move again so as to get closer to the enemy. Now that Player A has finished an activation, Player B now gets an opportunity to play a card. Wanting to keep their options open, Player B will opt to play their Joker. A Joker allows you to activate any unit on your roster as opposed to a court card being locked to specific profiles. With their Joker dealt, Player B decides to activate their squad of marksmen, which is their Jack. For their first action, Player B decides to move their squad. Since squads consist of multiple models as opposed to a solo's 1 model, Player B's marksmen will move slightly differently to Player A's Hearthguard. To move their squad, Player B will choose 1 model from the squad and move it as solos do. After the movement is completed, the other members of the squad that were left behind are then placed wholly within 2 inches of the squad member that moved. Player B will place the 2 remaining members ahead of the model that moved, so as to get the maximum distance out of that action. Now that their movement has concluded, the squad gets to perform another simple action. 2 of the marksmen have Player A's Hearthguard within valid range of their longbows, so Player B will opt to have them perform a ranged attack. To perform an attack, the activating player chooses a weapon listed on the profile of the unit performing the attack action and declares a target. If the target is within the weapon's range value, the unit performs a test against their stat as stipulated by the weapon. In the case of the marksmen, they are performing a ranged attack, which requires a test against their skill value. To perform a test, the activating player reveals a card from the top of the Chaos deck. If the number revealed is less than or equal to the stat stipulated by the test, then the test is considered a success. While tests by themselves only allow for a single card to be flipped, weapons grant their user a burst, which is an amount of additional flips the activating player can attempt should their prior flip prove unsuccessful in the attack. Weapons equipped to solos have a set burst value that differs from weapon to weapon, while weapons equipped to squads have a burst value that equals the number of squad members that can draw valid range and line of sight to their target. Let's look back at this attack action to see this in practice. 2 of the 3 marksmen have line of sight and range to the Hearthguard, so the unit can declare it as the target of an attack. Player B will then flip a card, comparing it to the marksman's skill stat of 7. Player B flips an 8, which is unsuccessful. Because the marksmen have 2 models and can draw a valid line of sight and range to their target, player B gets another attempt at the flip. This time, they reveal a 4, which is a success. If an attack is successful, the attacking unit adds the power bonus of the weapon they used to the number on their successful flip. In this example, the marksmen have a longbow with a power bonus of +4, bringing the total number to 8. The targeted model must attempt a save against this attack value of 8 in order to prevent themselves from taking damage. Should they fail their save, they will take the damage equal to the weapon's first damage value. To perform a save, the defending player flips a card off the top of the Chaos deck and applies their save bonus to it. If the total value is higher than the attacker's value, then the save is successful and no damage is taken. Player A flips a 5 and adds their Hearthguard save bonus of +2. That is a 7, which unfortunately does not beat player B's attack value of 8. The marksman squad successfully deals the longbow's damage value of 2 to the Hearthguard. The Hearthguard has 4 health, so it is still conscious. For now. Let's fast forward through the round a little. Player A has spent a queen to move their champion up the board, and player B has activated their marksman and successfully dealt enough damage to the Hearthguard to down it. A downed model is not out of play, but may only perform the following complex actions: Second Wind and Crawl. After witnessing the fall of their Hearthguard, player A activates its champion with a joker to engage the squad of marksmen. After an action, if 2 miniatures are within half an inch of each other, they snap together in base-to-base contact and are considered engaged. While engaged, a model may only perform the disengage simple skill or perform a melee attack. After player B activates their cleric and moves them, player A decides that it's time for some retribution against the marksman and activates their champion with a Queen of Spades to perform a melee attack with its polearm. The polearm has a printed burst value of 2, so the champion gets 2 attempts against their physique of 7. Their flip is a 10, followed by an 8. This would ordinarily constitute a failure for the champion, but each player has a trick up their sleeve, the ability to push their luck. Once per round, each player may push their luck to add an extra flip to their unsuccessful test. They can alternatively push their luck to force an opponent to retry a save. Player A decides that this is the moment and pushes their luck to flip an extra card in the attack. This new card is a 5 of spades, which not only is less than equal to the champion's physique, but is also the same suit as the court card used to activate the champion. This attack is a critical success. If the marksmen fail their save, they will take the second critical damage value from the champion's polearm instead of the first value. The marksmen flip a 3 for their save, which is not enough to save against the righteous blow of the champion. A model in the squad takes the polearm's 3 critical damage, which is more than the squad's health value of 2. If a model in a squad is not its only remaining member, that model is removed from the game instead of being downed. If a model in a squad is the only remaining model and reaches 0 health, it is downed as normal. Because the champion has dealt enough damage to the marksman's controller removes one of its members from the game. This will not stand. Player B activates their ace with an ace of hearts and moves it forward, bringing it within 7 inches of player A's champion. With their second action, player B will have the wizard attempt a willpower test in order to cast a spell. With a successful flip of 6 of hearts, player B selects the lightning bolt spell and flings it at a target within their wizard's line of sight and sphere of influence. Sphere of influence is a passive range all profiles have that is equal to their willpower in inches. It is used by spells and by certain passive effects. With a willpower of 7, the wizard has the champion within its sphere of influence and can choose it as a target of its lightning bolt. The 6 of hearts was a critical success, meaning that if the champion fails its save, it is then dealt a whopping 5 damage. Lightning bolt has a power bonus of +3 and an additional keyword of piercing 1, meaning that the champion's save bonus is reduced by 1. The champion needs a 9 or a 10 to save against this lightning. The champion flips a 10. When performing a save, a 10 is considered an automatic success, regardless of the value the unit is saving against. This would allow the champion to shrug off the lightning, if player B didn't have luck to push. Player B does decide to push their luck in an effort to force the champion to fail their save. Player A draws a new card, and draws a 9. With their save bonus of 2, reduced to 1 by the lightning's pierce, this is just enough to save what would have otherwise been some incredibly lethal lightning. How fortuitous. Now that we've demonstrated some examples of combat, let's fast forward to the end of the activation phase, after both players have played as many court cards as they can. This begins the conquest phase of the round. Beginning with the attacker, each player places one banner token within 4 inches of a friendly conscious solo model. Players retrieve their played court cards and begin a new round, once again with the attacker taking the first turn. Player A doesn't want to risk their Hearthguard being stabbed while they're down, so they check to see if their Hearthguard is within 4 inches of a friendly banner. They are indeed within 4 inches of that banner, so they play a King of Spades, and their Hearthguard attempts a Second Wind complex action. Second Wind requires a downed model to be within 4 inches of a friendly banner and to pass a willpower test. The activating model gets a +1 bonus to their willpower for each friendly banner in play, even if those other banners aren't within line of sight. Since only one banner has been placed, the Hearthguard gets a +1 bonus to their willpower of 6, bringing the value they must flip to a 7 or less. If they succeed at their Second Wind, the Hearthguard immediately performs a free, simple action. Player A flips a 2, which is a successful Second Wind. They regain 1 point of health and immediately perform a prepare simple action. This requires a test against the Hearthguard's skill of 5. If they succeed, they get an evasive token, which allows them to retry a single save should they fail. Player A flips a 7, which is unfortunately higher than the Hearthguard's skill. The Hearthguard does not get the token. Play passes back and forth between the two players, each taking actions with their profiles and units in hopes of victory. In the end, after the third game round, one of the two players is declared the victor. This concludes a demonstration of some of the most fundamental actions units can take in a game of YAFSIGA. While we haven't covered every possible action in the game, this is more than enough to get you going in your games, and detailed explanations of every action and combat interaction can be found in our core rulebook. Go forth and conquer. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.